There was a woman in California who seemed to be surrounded by love. Friends brought meals. Strangers sent prayers. Church members gathered around her family. Online followers checked her updates late at night, hoping for good news, bracing for bad news, and doing what people often do when they are moved by someone else's suffering. They gave. Sometimes they gave money. Sometimes they gave time. Sometimes they gave babysitting, gifts, encouragement, rides, meals, or simply attention. They believed they were helping a young mother hold on through a frightening illness. There were photographs, hospital rooms, medicine, bracelets, fundraisers, a shaved head, posts about pain and courage, posts about fear and faith, posts that made people feel close to the center of something intimate and urgent. And for years, the story seemed to grow. There were remissions, there were relapses, there were dramatic turns. There were claims of treatment in different places. There were moments that sounded miraculous, and moments that sounded almost impossibly cruel. But quietly, away from the fundraisers and the sympathetic comments, a few people began to feel that something was not right. Not because they lacked compassion, because they were paying attention. A detail did not fit. Then another. A memory clashed with a post. A medical claim seemed strange. A story that had once inspired generosity began to leave a thin line of doubt behind it. And doubt, once it is spoken aloud, can become evidence. Tonight, we are going to follow the slow unraveling of a modern deception. It is a story about trust, illness, community, faith, motherhood, money, and the fragile line between private suffering and public performance. It is also a story about the people who believed they were doing the right thing, and later had to sit with the painful knowledge that their kindness had been used. For a long time, this case did not look like a crime scene. It looked like a blog. It looked like a prayer request. It looked like a young family in need. And that is what made it so difficult to see clearly. Welcome back. Tonight's episode is a calm, true crime story for sleep, told slowly and respectfully, with no graphic detail and no sudden turns in tone. This is a documented case based on public reporting and federal court information, and the focus will stay on the facts, the people affected, and the quiet way a deception can settle into a community before anyone knows how to name it. As always, you can listen with your eyes closed. There is no need to remember every date, every name, or every detail. The story will move gently from the beginning, through the years of confusion, into the investigation, and finally into the consequences. This case is not a murder case. It is not a story of physical violence. But it is still a story of harm, because fraud can wound people in places that are hard to measure. It can make generosity feel unsafe. It can make a church group question its instincts. It can make friends look back over years of memories and wonder which moments were real. Tonight, we begin in Northern California, in and around San Jose, with a woman who seemed, to many people around her, warm, active, energetic, and deeply connected. Her name was Amanda Christine Riley, but before her name became associated with a national podcast, a documentary series, and a federal criminal case, She was known to many simply as Amanda, a wife, a mother, a church member, a blogger, and, she claimed, a cancer patient. San Jose, California, is a large city, but stories like this often begin in smaller circles: a church circle, a family circle, a school circle, a group of friends, a set of people who see one another often enough that trust begins to feel natural. Amanda Riley lived in the Bay Area and became active in a Christian community. A BC News later described her as part of Family Community Church in San Jose, a large congregation with many groups and activities. In that environment, people knew one another through services, events, volunteering, family life, and shared faith. Amanda was married to Corey Riley. According to ABC News, they married in 2011, and Amanda had a role as a wife, a mother, and a stepmother. Their first child together was born in May 2012. To the people around her, Amanda appeared to be living a full life. She had children to care for. She had a family to present. She had a church community where people could see her, speak with her, pray for her, and support her. And then came the claim that changed everything. In 2012, Amanda told people that she had Hodgkin's lymphoma. Federal prosecutors later said that beginning in 2012, while living in San Jose, Amanda falsely reported that diagnosis and began building an online presence around it. Hodgkin's lymphoma is a serious form of cancer affecting the lymphatic system. For most people, hearing that phrase in a community setting, the medical details would not matter as much as the emotional force of it. A young mother was sick. A family was facing uncertainty. Friends wanted to help. Amanda began documenting what she presented as her illness online. She posted on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and a blog. The blog was called Lymphoma Can Suck It. Federal prosecutors said she used these platforms to document a medical condition that did not exist and to solicit donations for supposed medical expenses. The blog gave people a place to gather. In another era, a family might have shared health updates by phone. A church might have passed a prayer list quietly from hand to hand. But in the 2000s and 10s, a personal medical crisis could become a public story very quickly. A blog could turn private suffering into a serialized narrative, with followers waiting for the next post. Amanda's posts included photos of medication, hospital settings, and what she described as the effects of chemotherapy. Prosecutors later said she used captions that falsely claimed she was taking cancer drugs and receiving cancer treatment. They also said she shaved her head to make it appear that she had lost her hair because of chemotherapy. For many people, images are persuasive. A photograph of someone in a hospital bed feels more direct than a written claim. A shaved head can feel like proof. A medical-looking document can feel official. A tearful update can feel too vulnerable to question. And this is one of the quiet tensions in the case. Most people do not want to interrogate a sick person. Most people do not want to become the kind of person who asks for proof when someone says they have cancer. In a caring community, suspicion can feel almost cruel. So, when Amanda posted updates and asked for help, people responded in the way people often hope they would respond. They believed her. They supported her. They gave what they could. The support was emotional, practical, spiritual, and financial. There were online donations. There were in-person fundraisers. Prosecutors said Amanda's blog linked to a support page where people could click a Donate Now icon. That page encouraged visitors to support Amanda and help with what it described as her battle with cancer. There were also fundraisers at Family Community Church in San Jose. Other people organized events too. In the criminal complaint, prosecutors described fundraisers that included a Facebook challenge, a CrossFit fundraiser, a Christmas ornament sale, a quilt raffle, a Chili's Grill and Bar fundraiser, and an eBay auction of items, including an electric guitar signed by country artists. This is important, because it shows how far the story traveled. Amanda was not only asking strangers to send a few dollars online. The story moved through real lives. People planned events. People donated items. People spent their time and energy trying to ease what they believed was a family's burden. There was a phrase often attached to people like Amanda in supportive communities. She was seen as strong, brave, faithful, a fighter. And the more public the story became, the more difficult it was to question, because by then, the story did not belong only to Amanda. It belonged to everyone who had repeated it, shared it, donated to it, prayed over it, and emotionally invested in it. That is one reason fraud can become so powerful. It does not only deceive people once, it invites them to participate in the deception without knowing it. A friend shares the blog. A church member organizes a fundraiser. A donor tells another donor. Someone posts a message of encouragement. Someone else sends money. With every act of support, the story becomes more visible, more accepted, and more protected by the good intentions of the people around it. Amanda's claimed illness also took dramatic turns. According to ABC News, in fall 2013, Amanda told followers that a doctor had said she was pregnant. The pregnancy was described by people around the case as surprising because she had claimed to be undergoing cancer treatment. In April 2014, she welcomed a healthy baby boy. The idea of a miracle can be emotionally powerful. A mother facing cancer, a pregnancy, a new baby, a family under strain. These are elements that can draw people in deeply. They make the story feel not only sad, but meaningful. They offer hope in the middle of fear. And yet, as the years passed, some people began to notice that Amanda's account of her illness seemed to shift. The story contained intense claims, treatments, relapses, travel, urgent expenses, medical procedures, moments of improvement, followed by frightening setbacks. To supporters, this could feel like the exhausting uncertainty of cancer. To skeptics, eventually, it began to feel like something else. The crime was not a single moment. It was not one false statement, one donation, or one event. It was a long-running pattern. Federal prosecutors said Amanda Riley devised and executed a plan to obtain money from donors by falsely claiming she had Hodgkin's lymphoma. She admitted that her intent was to deceive people into believing she had cancer, so they would donate money to her. The scheme began in 2012 and continued until at least January 3rd, 2019. That means It stretched across years of birthdays, holidays, school days, church services, pregnancies, family milestones, and ordinary afternoons. It continued long enough for supporters to live whole chapters of their own lives while believing Amanda was living through a severe illness. The money came in different ways. Some came through online donations, some came through checks, some came through fundraisers, some came from friends, some came from family, some came from members of her church. Some came from people who may have known Amanda only through the story she told online. Between September 13th, 2013, and March 15th, 2016, prosecutors alleged that Amanda received 447 online donations, totaling $60,272.43 through her support page alone. After fees, they said she pocketed $58,256.86 from that online support page during that period. By sentencing, the government identified 349 individuals and entities who made contributions with a total value of $105,513 toward Amanda's fabricated medical expenses. Those numbers matter, but numbers can also flatten a story. $105,513 is a total. Behind that total were individual decisions. Someone may have given $20 after reading a post before bed. Someone may have given a larger amount after seeing her at church. Someone may have bought an item in a fundraiser. Someone may have believed that even a small contribution could help buy time, treatment, or comfort. The harm was not only financial, it was emotional. People gave because they felt compassion. They gave because they believed a mother was sick. They gave because they trusted what they were seeing. They gave because a community had told them, directly or indirectly, that Amanda's story was real. And the whole time, according to Amanda's own guilty plea and federal prosecutors, she did not have Hodgkin's lymphoma. She did not have cancer. She had no cancer-related expenses. Instead, prosecutors said the donations were deposited into Amanda's personal bank accounts and used for living expenses. Amanda also took steps to maintain the appearance of illness. Federal prosecutors said she shaved her head, falsified medical records, forged physicians' letters and medical certifications, convinced family members to echo false claims, gave materially false testimony in several legal proceedings, and attacked people who suggested she was malingering, including suing one of them. That last part is especially important. When someone lies quietly, the lie may survive through silence. But when someone challenges the lie, the deception has to adapt. It may become defensive. It may become aggressive. It may try to turn the accuser into the problem. In Amanda's case, prosecutors said she went so far as to sue one person who questioned her. That type of response can have a chilling effect. If someone already feels uncomfortable questioning a claimed cancer patient, the possibility of being attacked or sued makes silence even more likely. The deception also involved medical institutions. In the criminal complaint, prosecutors said Amanda falsely claimed at various times that she was receiving cancer treatment at hospitals, including Kaiser Permanente, City of Hope National Medical Center, Johns Hopkins Hospital, Columbia University Hospital, and UCSF Medical Center. To a listener, those names may sound official and reassuring. They are recognizable medical settings. They lend weight to a story. A person who says they are being treated at major hospitals may sound harder to doubt. But prosecutors said that, in reality, Amanda had not been diagnosed with or treated for Hodgkin's lymphoma or any other type of cancer. There was also the claim of travel. According to the complaint, Amanda claimed she'd traveled to New York City for cancer treatments and asked for donations to help with travel costs. Travel for medical care is another detail that can intensify sympathy. It suggests desperation. It suggests a family searching beyond local options. It suggests expenses that pile up beyond treatment itself. Airfare, hotels, meals, childcare, missed work. But when the underlying illness is false, every added detail becomes another layer of harm, because supporters are not simply responding to a diagnosis. They are responding to the world built around that diagnosis. A world of hospital rooms, a world of travel, a world of financial stress, a world of children needing their mother, a world where faith and fear sit beside each other. Amanda's blog and posts gave that world shape. They made it visible. And because the internet allows a person to narrate their own life in real time, the story could continue without traditional gatekeepers. Followers did not need to see medical records. They did not need to speak with doctors. They did not need to verify a diagnosis. They simply entered the story through Amanda's words and images. That is one of the modern elements of this case. The fraud did not require a fake office, a counterfeit charity headquarters, or a complicated investment scheme. It required a compelling personal narrative, a network of trust, and digital tools that made giving easy. A donate button can shorten the distance between emotion and action. You read, you feel, you click, and then the money is gone. For years, Amanda's story held, but not for everyone. Some people saw inconsistencies, and one of them eventually decided to speak. In many true crime stories, the investigation begins with a call to police. In this case, it began more quietly. It began with doubt. A BC News reported that one of the people who became uneasy was Lisa Berry, a former friend of Amanda Riley. Berry said there was something inside her telling her that the situation was not right. She had watched the attention Amanda was receiving and had begun reading the blog more closely. Suspicion in a case like this is uncomfortable. To doubt someone's illness can feel harsh, even shameful. But Berry was not reacting to one small oddity. According to ABC News, she had begun to suspect a pattern of lies. One incident she described involved Amanda allegedly saying she had just had fluid drained from her brain, then appearing at a backyard pool and swimming underwater. Berry said that did not make sense to her. That kind of detail may sound small, but investigations often begin with something small. A timeline that does not align. A story that changes slightly when retold. A behavior that seems inconsistent with a claimed medical event. A document that looks wrong. A claim that sounds possible at first, then less possible the longer someone thinks about it. In 2015, according to ABC News, Lisa Berry contacted investigative producer Nancy Moscatiello, who was looking into scam stories for the television program Crime Watch Daily. Moscatiello became interested, and once someone outside the immediate emotional circle began looking at the story, the case shifted. This is another quiet but important point. Communities can be loving, but love can make verification difficult. Outsiders may see patterns that insiders are too emotionally burdened to examine. An outsider can ask questions that a friend feels guilty asking. Moscatiello began reviewing Amanda's public claims and looking for inconsistencies. ABC News described this as the turning point that eventually led to the downfall of the scam. Moscatiello then brought her findings to Jose Martinez, who was a financial crimes detective in San Jose. Martinez eventually referred the case to the IRS, which took over the investigation. The involvement of the IRS may seem surprising at first, especially in a case about a fake illness, but the crime at the center was financial fraud. Money had moved, donations had been collected, support pages had processed online payments, fundraisers had produced funds, personal bank accounts had received money. A financial investigation could trace what emotion could not. The IRS Criminal Investigation Division and the San Jose Police Department became central to the case. Federal prosecutors later said the prosecution resulted from an investigation by IRS Criminal Investigation and the San Jose Police Department. Investigators had to answer several careful questions. Did Amanda have cancer? Had she ever had cancer? Had she received the treatments she claimed? Were medical documents genuine? Where did donated money go? What did donors believe they were giving money for? And did Amanda knowingly deceive them? The government ultimately concluded that Amanda did not have, and had never had, Hodgkin's lymphoma, or any other type of cancer. The evidence also showed that Amanda had taken deliberate steps to strengthen the lie. She had posted photographs. She had changed her appearance. She had used support pages. She had organized or benefited from fundraisers. She had altered or falsified medical materials. She had used the language of treatment and diagnosis while asking people to give. According to prosecutors, on or about April 6, 2016, Amanda altered a doctor's note to read that she was in treatment for cancer. A forged or altered document matters because it changes the nature of the story. It is no longer only an exaggeration. It is no longer only a vague claim made online. It becomes an attempt to create proof, and proof can quiet doubt. If someone questions a diagnosis and is shown what appears to be a doctor's note, the question may stop there. Most people are not trained to inspect medical documents. Most people will not call hospitals to verify them. Most people do not want to invade someone's privacy. So a false document can act like a wall. Behind that wall, the deception can continue. By July 2020, federal prosecutors had filed a criminal complaint charging Amanda Riley with wire fraud. The DOJ announcement said she was charged in connection with a scheme to solicit donations to help pay for cancer treatments she never needed or received. At that stage, the complaint was an allegation, and the DOJ noted that Amanda was presumed innocent unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Then, in October 2021, Amanda pleaded guilty in federal court to wire fraud. A guilty plea changed the public posture of the case. The central claim was no longer only something investigators believed they could prove. Amanda admitted that she had carried out a plan to deceive donors by falsely claiming she had Hodgkin's lymphoma. She admitted that people donated because they believed her money would be used for cancer-related expenses, and that in reality, she had no cancer-related expenses. For donors and supporters, that admission may have landed heavily. Some may have felt anger, some embarrassment, some grief. Some may have replayed their own memories. The fundraiser they attended, the post they shared, the prayer they said, the conversation they had with Amanda, the child they helped care for, the money they sent. Fraud can make victims feel complicit, even when they are not. It can make a generous person wonder whether they should have known better. But the responsibility for deception belongs to the deceiver. The people who donated were responding to what they believed was a genuine medical crisis. Their compassion was not the crime. Their trust was not the crime. Their willingness to help was not foolishness. It was human. The sentencing took place on May 3rd, 2022. Amanda Christine Riley was sentenced to 60 months in federal prison. She was also ordered to pay $105,513 in restitution and to serve 3 years of supervised release after prison. At sentencing, prosecutors described the lengths Amanda went to in order to maintain the deception, shaving her head, falsifying medical records, forging letters and certifications, convincing family members to repeat false claims, giving materially false testimony in legal proceedings, and attacking those who questioned her. The judge was Beth Labson Freeman of the Northern District of California. The sentence was significant. 5 years in prison for a fraud case involving a fake illness sent a clear message. The court recognized not only the financial loss, but the sustained, personal nature of the deception. This was not a momentary lapse. It was a years-long performance that reached into churches, homes, social media feeds, and the private kindness of hundreds of people afterward. Amanda's story became widely known under the name Scamanda, first through a popular podcast, and later through a television docu-series. A BC News Studios released a 4-part docu-series based on the podcast, with interviews involving people connected to the case. By then, the story had moved from local circles into national attention. But for the people closest to it, the case was not just a compelling true crime narrative. It was personal. It was the memory of being misled by someone they had cared about. It was the discomfort of realizing that a story about illness had been used as a tool. It was the ache of looking back and wondering whether any moment of vulnerability had been real. The Amanda Riley case is unsettling because it took place in spaces where people are usually at their best. A church, a support page, a fundraiser, a message of encouragement, a prayer, a meal, a ride, a donation sent because someone wanted to help. There are crimes that announce themselves with obvious danger. This was not one of them. This crime wore the language of hardship. It borrowed the shape of illness. It moved through compassion. That is why the story lingers. Because it asks a difficult question. How do we remain generous in a world where generosity can be exploited? The answer cannot be to stop caring. If every person who heard Amanda's story had turned away, the world would not have been wiser. It would only have been colder. The deeper lesson is not that kindness is foolish. It is that trust and verification sometimes have to exist together. A community can care deeply and still build safeguards. A fundraiser can be compassionate and still transparent. A donor can give and still ask where the money is going. A church can support a member and still protect the people giving in good faith. Those safeguards are not acts of cruelty. They are acts of stewardship. They protect donors, and they also protect real patients. Because when a false illness story is exposed, it can cast a shadow over people who are genuinely sick and genuinely in need. That is one of the quiet harms in this case. Amanda's deception did not only affect the people who gave to her, it risked making future acts of support feel more complicated. It risked placing suspicion near real suffering, and real suffering does not need another burden. The people who helped Amanda believed they were part of a story about endurance. They thought they were helping a mother through cancer. Instead, they became part of a story about manipulation, performance, and fraud. Yet their kindness remains theirs. The deception does not erase the sincerity of the people who gave. It does not make their compassion false. It does not turn their prayers into mistakes. It only shows that trust, once offered, can be mishandled by someone determined to use it. Amanda Riley's public story ended in a federal courtroom with a guilty plea, a prison sentence, restitution, and supervised release. But the emotional story did not end there. It continued in the lives of people who had to explain what happened. It continued in the family relationships changed by the case. It continued in the memories of church members, friends, investigators, and donors. It continued in the uncomfortable silence after the truth became clear. For years, Amanda had built a story around illness. Then the investigation built a story around evidence. And evidence, slowly and carefully, did what suspicion alone could not do. It brought the performance to an end. Tonight's case reminds us that some crimes do not begin in darkness. Some begin in rooms full of sympathy. Some begin with a sentence like, "I'm sick." Some begin when good people believe they are being invited to help. And perhaps that is why this story feels so quiet and so heavy, because the victims were not careless. They were caring. And that was exactly what the deception depended on. Thank you for listening. As you rest, let the details of the case settle and fade. The investigation is over. The truth was documented. The people who were misled were not wrong to be kind. For tonight, you can leave the story here, in a quiet courtroom, in a closed blog, in the space between trust and proof, and in the hope that compassion, even when misused, can still remain compassion.